One of the most difficult sayings of Jesus for me is when he tells us to turn the other cheek. I've always found that hard. There were and still are two ways to relate to the authority and power of an oppressor. The first is to accept it and all the abuses that go along with it, cooperate and collaborate. Leadership in Jerusalem, the high priest, the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, the temple authorities chose to do that, cooperate with Rome. It's hard to judge them. We aren't in their shoes. They're looking to survive. They certainly weren't the only people in history to do that, to collaborate with oppressors in order to preserve something of security and stability. The other way is active resistance. In Jesus' day, the Zealots were an armed resistance organization that attacked Roman soldiers, harassed Roman outposts and supply lines, as resistance groups often do. But here Jesus is proposing another way, a third way, a way of nonviolent resistance, which restores the identity and dignity of the victim and preserves the hope, at least, for reconciliation and peace. When a Jewish civilian was slapped in the face by a Roman official, and instead of striking back, which would result in his death and maybe the death or torture of his family, instead of striking back or crumbling to the ground begging for mercy, if he proudly offers his other cheek, something changes profoundly in the situation. He is now resisting nonviolently in a profound way. He is now an active part of that dynamic, not merely its victim in the situation. He's an active part of the situation. He is a full human being, not simply an object of abuse. Gandhi understood the dynamics, loved these sayings of Jesus, built nonviolent resistance into a movement that accomplished what decades of armed rebellion could never accomplish, namely the independence of India and the end of British colonial occupation. Martin Luther King Jr. understood the power of nonviolent resistance and trained young African American college students how to do nonviolent resistance, to sit at segregated lunch counters and allow angry white people to pour ketchup, milk, salt, and pepper over their heads, fighting every instinct inside themselves to strike back, showing the world a picture of the evil of bigotry and racism. It worked. My favorite illustration of this comes from the story of Jackie Robinson, the first African American to play Major League Baseball. The conversation between Branch Rickey, the Dodgers general manager, and Jackie Robinson is now legendary. Rickey knew that his decision to sign Robinson to a contract with the Dodgers would not be popular. Robinson was a superb athlete, but no black man had ever played for a major league team, and many baseball owners, players, and fans wanted it to stay that way. During their conversation, Branch Rickey fired questions at Robinson. What would he do if a restaurant waiter refused to serve him, if he couldn't stay in the same hotel as the rest of the team, if opposing pitchers threw at his head? Robinson was confused. "Mr. Rickey, do you want a player who is afraid to fight back?" he asked. He said, "I want a player with enough guts not to fight back," Rickey explained. The final question and answer are in the history books. It's the last game of the World Series. The score is tied. I go in to use spikes first, but you don't give ground. All I see is your black face. I haul off and punch you in the cheek. What do you do?" "Mr. Rickey," Robinson answered, "I have two cheeks." Jackie Robinson was a proud, strong, aggressive man who never bowed to anyone. But because he had the grace and strength and courage to respond nonviolently, he changed baseball and played a major role in changing American life.